And so far they are. All right. See if we get anybody on here. Give it a minute. All right, we got one. One so far. Maybe. See if anybody else will show up here. It's Friday afternoon, one of the most inopportune times to go live, but because everybody's probably sitting down to supper right about this point. But anyway, yeah, for those of you that come in and watch after the fact, I tried to go live last night, but YouTube was throwing a fit. It would not let me go live whatsoever, and I thought I'd made them mad because I had one of them implements in the picture, in the main picture, and I thought, oh crap, they hit me for that. But I think it was just because, well, I think YouTube was either having a fit or it was the weather here because the wind blew like a son of a gun all night. Of course, it's blowing right now pretty good too, but anyway. Oh, now we're up to 4. Now we're starting to get people. It took 2 minutes this time. So go ahead and chime in there for those of you that are watching. And it says we're up to 1 like already. And yeah, it's not showing me anything in the chat here. Oh. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, yeah, chime in there, folks, if you can hear everything and everything's working good, because like I said, it's not showing me any comments. Back over here and look at it on the YouTube side of things. Hey, Justin Arnold, how we doing? Finally got one comment in there. Yeah, I pulled it up on the other side too, and I can kind of see what's going on. Actually, no, I'm gonna shut that off because that's weird seeing myself over again. It's like, which one do I watch? Hey, Lone Dragoon. So, anyways, yeah, I was gonna go live last night and kind of talk a little bit about some of the things I was talking about in the shorts with the cavalry carrying. Then I realized that, oh yeah, YouTube doesn't like when we show those things on live streams because that makes a whole bunch of difference between that and shorts. But anyway, wouldn't let me go live last night, so I figured I'd try it here again this afternoon, see if things were working a little bit better. But yeah, just kind of going through some of my books here and looking at some of them and trying to figure out what I need to read and such. But I know some folks have been asking about the Tom Tobin, doing one on Tom Tobin for one of the chats we're going to be talking about. And I think we're going to discuss Tom Tobin a little bit on the next one. So the next chat, which is coming up not tomorrow, week from tomorrow, whatever week from tomorrow is, April the 8th. And I may be taking off for Wyoming right after that. I'm not sure yet. But anyway, yeah, April the 8th, we have a chat going on for Tales of the Trails. And we were going to be going over the scouts, and so I might touch on Tom Tobin a little bit in there. So yeah, I've had gotten that out and been reading on that. But yeah, I thought I'd come on here and yeah, just see if things were working. See if everybody was doing okay. And I was also going to mention too, I won't be on the chat tomorrow with 11 Bang Bang. Maybe moderating on the side. But 11 Bang Bang's got, I think it's British muzzleloaders on. um, tomorrow on the 11 Bang Bang Reload show. So it's going to be Ethan and the guy from British Muzzleloaders. I think it's that one. They'll be on there talking, and so highly recommend you go over and check that out. And like I've said before, I think all my subscribers are subscribed to 11 Bang Bang, so you should know when it goes on. But anyway, hey Sabater, hey, I missed you on the last one. Anyway, yeah, I've been kind of trying to get leather work done. Yesterday, I didn't get anything done because I was under the weather. Uh, Dad and I went out fishing on Wednesday because I told myself, I was like, I got to get in, a couple fishing trips with my dad before I go back to Wyoming. And one of the bigger lakes that we got around here's got some water in it, and people have been catching some nice walleyes. So I thought, well, we'll go. Not going to put the boat in, but we're going to go fish from shore and see what happened. And told him, I said, let's go Wednesday because the weather's supposed to be nice. The wind's not supposed to be terrible. It's only supposed to be up like in 20s up until, late in the afternoon before it got bad. And the temperature is supposed to be 67 degrees. And anyway, we loaded up, got in the van, went over to the lake, got out of the car, realized we'd forgot our coats. And while it was 50-some degrees up on top of the dam, when you got down to the water where the wind was coming off the water, it was only like 40-some. So we casted lures until my shoulder got to hurting, and then I kind of slipped around on some rocks and made my shoulder hurt a little more, and we finally decided to give it up and went and tried a couple other places. I did catch one fish, caught a trout in a lake that we didn't know had trout in it, so we don't know if that was a fluke or if the state stocked them in there. But anyway, wasn't worth keeping, even though he got off on me when he got to the shore anyway and got away. But yeah, come home yesterday both of us had head colds. I felt miserable. I had the night before after we got home, I had to take a couple of NyQuils to get to sleep because my nose and sinuses were just plugged up. And then all day yesterday, Dad and I just felt like crap. And today we're feeling a little bit better, but the wind's been blowing pretty bad here today, and with the dust, it's like I didn't want to go out and mess with anything. So tomorrow I'm going to start leather back up. But yeah, if you got an order with me currently, I'm either working on it or it's going to be on the next batch, one of the two. I've got so many orders right now, I don't know what to do with them all. Let's see, Justin. I recently got an old black powder rifle for my friend's buddy for free. He said it didn't need it. Nice. That's the favorite kind. I've gotten lucky in my life. I've gotten 2 free guns that I know for sure. I got a Winchester pump action from my uncle that gave it to me, and I got a Carcano bolt action that belonged to a dear friend of mine, and his son gave it to me. And then I got my 49 pocket model that I got for a birthday present this past year. That one was really nice. My little Wells Fargo. And that one is beautiful. That one sits in the safe. I should take it out of the safe, but anyway. I'm trying to think if there was any other ones I got for free. I can't remember getting any other ones for free. Anyways, besides my 16 gauge. So digressing anyways, but yeah, been sitting here trying to get organized to start doing some reading and doing some more research. So yeah, if you haven't heard, I'm working on a book. I've been working. I think I've mentioned it before a few times, but been working on a book for the Scouts, and I think I'm going to work on another book too. Because I bought a book, and I'm kind of want to show it on here, but I don't. But I bought a book on Amazon that was supposed to be on the Colorado War, which is pretty much Sand Creek, Julesburg, all that was going on here in Colorado. 1864, well, you can even say late 1863 through early 1865. But I found this book on Amazon. I thought, what the heck, I'd buy it. And the author had several other books and stuff. And when I got it, yeah, the history's pretty decent. The guy's got some good history. I didn't find too many errors. I found a couple things that were controversial that, we don't know one way or the other for 100% sure, but anyway, other than that, most of the history is good in it. But the organization is terrible. And it's one of those things that, a lot of authors, especially when they write on something like for Sand Creek, for instance, Stan Hoyt, the actual chapter that deals with the massacre is about 20 pages. And that's towards the end of the book. The rest of the book is everything leading up to it in the year of 1864. So I'm used to the main topic being a small section. However, it's 20 pages on one day. And in this particular book, it's about the entire Colorado War, 64 and 65. And out of about a 300-page book, I think it's about 300 pages. Anyway, there's 50 pages on 2 years. And there's a lot of conflicts that took place in those 2 years. And most of those conflicts get a paragraph. And then a picture of a map where they were taking place at. So it's just like, it's not a well done book. So after I got that, I was like, you know what? I might write my own book on the Colorado War. Yeah, I could probably get away with it at this point. I read up enough on it. But anyways, yeah, so that's what I've been doing, just kind of going over my books here and trying to figure out, what all I'm going to talk about on the next episode of Tales of the Trails. And, I talk about disorganized authors. This is a disorganized chat. Well, Hardy's in. Let's see, Justin said I found out that there's a ball stuck halfway up the barrel. I don't know how to get it out. Was wondering if you know. Air compressor with a rubber tip. Take the cone out, the nipple, and stick that rubber tip down in that hole and hit it with an air compressor. If that don't get it out, then you get a fiberglass ramrod with a ball puller on the end of it. And you run that down there and drill that into the ball. And if that don't get it out, gunsmith. Either that or, take it to a gunsmith, have him pull a breech plug, and then push it out. Because that's about the only way you can get them out when they don't do that. We had one. Who the heck was I with at that time? I think it was a friend of mine up in the Black Hills. He bought one that had 3 balls stuck on top of each other because the guy dry balled them. And we got 2 out with the ball puller. The third one, we just couldn't get it to bite. And finally, he's chucked it in a vise and pulled the breech plug, flung the ramrod down through the end of it, and popped it right out. But yeah, yeah, don't do what Hardy said on that one. Anyway, no, air compressor. I've seen guys use that. And then, if you have to pull that breech plug, take it to a gunsmith. The problem is there's not a lot of gunsmiths today that know how to work on freaking muzzleloaders. So you may have to wind up doing it yourself. All I can say is, I don't know what kind you got, but all I can say is if you have to pull that breech plug, use a well-fitting wrench. Don't be getting your $4 Harbor Freight monkey wrench, whatever they call them, crescent wrench. Get a decent wrench to pull that because you don't want to mess it up. Artie says I had a heck of a day, not telling. Yeah, I know what you mean. I've had those days. Artie says sounds like a book for a middle school librarian for stories. Really, it's the way it's laid out. I mean, it's not laid out like a normal history book. It's laid out like a presentation. And it's just not, And the thing of it is if the title would have been the Indian Wars from Grattan Fight to Wounded Knee, I wouldn't have had any problem with it. Problem there is that the same author has a book that's titled The Indian Wars from Grattan Fight to Wounded Knee. And so it's like, this is the same book, he just throw it in the Colorado War in with it. And it's like, for crying out loud. It's just not well. And the other thing is it's published through Kindle Direct. And then all these pictures he titles, Creative Commons thing. So it's like, okay, we're at high school level source citing. He does cite his sources well. He puts the numbers in there, so the bullet point, or whatever you call those, footnotes. And, he's got his information when you go back to the index, and he's got the methodology tree in there, which is nice. anyway, yeah, he's got the all this. So, I mean, he's got his stuff. It's just that there's places in there he needs to have more of that. There's one in there where he talks about Yellow Woman, where she got killed at, and that was, if you're not familiar, that was William Bent's second wife. So when William Bent married into the Cheyenne tribe, and excuse me, I'm adjusting the tripod here because I'm going to lean back. When William Bent married into the Cheyenne tribe, he married Owl Woman, and with that, he also got marriage rights to her two sisters, which was Yellow Woman and Island. And he talks about when Yellow Woman got killed, and it's like, that's the first time I've seen a definite where she got killed at. It doesn't cite the source where he got it from. And so that, for me, should have been like, okay. And actually, now kind of think of it, I think in George Bent's letters, he talks about where she got killed at. But anyway, it's like, yeah, that one should have been sourced at... Now I got thinking on Yellow One. I need to go back and read George Bent, Life of George Bent, but I don't have that book. Because I think he does mention where she gets killed at. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it's just not... There's a lot of gap filling. The guy did not spend a lot of time on his subject topic. Put it that way. Yeah, it's like chapter 1 is less than 10 pages. That's on the Great Plains. Didn't need its own chapter, in my opinion. Then chapter 2 is the tribes in the First Sioux War, which, okay, kind of leading things up, but really what has this First Sioux War got to do a lot with the Colorado War? It doesn't. The other thing in there, he says the First Sioux War was the result of the Colorado Gold Rush. And it's like, no, that was before. The First Sioux War was a result of the Grattan Massacre, or the Grattan Fight, however you want to call it, followed by the Harney Massacre, where Harney, wiped out a Brule village. Yeah. And then, he, on the tribes, he breaks it down to agriculture, the horse, hunting, weapons, language, garments, dwellings. It's like, I don't really think... really needed to get into all that. Then he talks about the Grattan fight. And I read up on that, and it's like, okay, if you're going to write about the Grattan fight, you got a little more in-depth. Because he just touches on things, and but anyway, he's got 2 bullet points on the Grattan fight. He's got the cards. So anyway, it's not a well thought out book. That was one of the things I was going to talk about here on the chat, is trying to figure out, the best way to pick books. Not Hardy, Harney. Yeah, Hardy. It's Harney. William S. Harney. If I'm not pronunciating right, that's because these things up here, my sinus cavities are all stuffed up. So, can't enunciate where the... but anyway, I don't think I'm going to show this one here, but... So I was going to talk about that a little bit on this chat too. That was kind of one of the ideas I had in my head, and if I'm a little loopy, it's because I've been on cold meds, but... when you're looking at picking up books, and I should have known this right from the get-go, before I even bought this book. I paid money for it, but when it comes up, and says published through Kindle Direct Publishing, that's probably a good sign of stay the heck away from it. Also on Amazon, it had 1 review, had 1 4-star review with no comment. Now it's got 2 reviews. I gave it 3. And the reason I gave it 3 is because the guy's he's got some decent history. It's one of those things that I should have known better. I had high hopes, but never judge a book by its cover, put it that way. When you go to pick out a book, That's a reputable source. University of Oklahoma Press, University of Nebraska Press. So a university press usually is a good sign. Now sometimes you get things that come out that aren't that great. Um, it's like the Jim Bridger book that just came out. Got some good information, organized very well, but it had some things in there. So it's like, what in the heck does this have to do with Jim Bridger? Didn't. Uh, so and that would come out of Oklahoma. So it's not 100%, and that's one of the other reasons why somebody asked me, why do I have so many books? That's one of the reasons. Don't just read one book on the subject. Read multiple books on the subject, and that'll kind of give you a better idea. The stuff you hear multiple times, that stuff you can take for gospel. Things that stand out that you aren't quite sure on, then you start researching on those points and find out whether or not they're true. And if they're true, usually they're mentioned somewhere else, either historically mentioned or somebody else has done research and can verify or deny whether that's actual fact. Just like this one's all on Sand Creek, but if you get into Washita, it talks about Sand Creek too. So you got your two bases covered there. But yeah, just always look at multiple sources. Do more research into it, I guess is what you should say. Don't just rely on one book. But even the well noted authors get some things wrong ever so often. And granted, this is an older book, so I don't know if the newer print edition has been updated. But this is one. It's Lone Star Justice. This is by Robert Utley. And Robert Utley is one of the most respected historians out there and authors. He unfortunately passed last year. I think it was last year he passed. But I started reading this one. And, he says that Sam Walker went to Sam Colt in 1839 to develop the Walker revolver. And, for us Colt fanboys, Colt historians, whatever, that's a big no-brainer because it was 1847. But it was published many years ago that said that it was 1839. I think it's Armsmere book. It's the one that Garrett always gets warm about. But anyway, yeah, that one gets cited by a couple of well-noted authors. And so it's just one of those things. That's why you don't rely on one source, because even the best, there might be something that they don't have quite right. But like I said, Robert Utley, great author, great historian, and I'd take his stuff. His stuff is all very well done. But yeah, like I said, even the good ones get something wrong every so often, or sometimes some things just change. You find new information. Let's see. I know I missed some. Sabater said just playing a new game. What game was you playing, Sabater? It's like I just realized that the Xbox I bought back when Red Dead Redemption was supposed to come out, and then I had to wait another year for it. It's getting out of date. It's like I was playing Star Wars the other day, the Fallen Order, Jedi Fallen Order, and then I was like, might look into the new one. And it's like, nope, got to buy a new console. Not gonna happen. Oh, let's see. Saber said I was thinking about recording a video for BP Airsoft and gun oil. Nothing new, but get you started. Let's see. Hardy says I'd be interested to know if it's based on a transcript from lectures. I don't know what the deal is. To be honest with you, I think it's based off of the book that he wrote that actually is on the subject of Grattan Fight to Win and he just added the Colorado War into it. I don't know. I'm not spending money on the other one to find out. Let's see. Yeah, Dragoon, I'll have to check that book out at some point. I started kind of getting into the Eastern front of the Civil War research when I started reading up on Mosby's Raiders. and I got 3 books on that that are all pretty decent. The uh, the thing of it is just like I'm not out east, and so that doesn't interest me as much. Whereas out west, out here when I'm out west, at the same time that stuff's going on, it's like there's all kinds of excitement going on out here. So most of my research is going to be focused on the area that I'm in, which is the Great Plains, Central Plains, whatever you want to call it, Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, all that fun stuff. Stuff is close to home. Because yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on out here. You had Gettysburg of the West, the Battle of Glorieta Pass. All kinds of fun stuff during the Civil War years. The Sand Creek Massacre, which is not exactly fun stuff. Then you have the Indian War of 1865, Colorado War of 1864. And so yeah, there's lots of info out there, and like I was saying, because of this book, it's kind of inspired me. So I might be working on 2 books here near future, and actually that's one that I could probably turn out faster than I would on my one on the Scouts, because the one I got on the Scouts, I'm gonna have to research the whole United States for info on Scouts. Um, Unless I just limit the book to the Northern Plains Indian Wars. Hardy. So, how do you think internet YouTube has affected historiography? Is it good for the good or bad? I'd say it's kind of halfway in between. The reason I say that is that there's a lot of stuff that I get off the internet from reputable places. JSTOR, excellent place. Thankfully, when I'm at work, I get free access to that, so I get a lot of stuff on JSTOR. A lot of stuff I'm able to find through the internet that I normally wouldn't even know existed. So a lot of these books, I'd know nothing about them if it wasn't for the fact the internet was there. So in that regard, yeah, it's great because now resources are available that weren't available before. The problem is that anybody can put anything on the internet, and so you get the things like Wikipedia. Like Wikipedia is something I look at not to quote from, but to find sources for. So it's like, yeah, if I was typing the Colorado War in Wikipedia, what the hell? Let's do it while we're sitting here. And I'm going to adjust my thing. I apologize, a mess on the desk. I have not done much house cleaning here lately because I've been working on leather. And yeah, and then when I'm home, I feel like crap and I don't do anything. So we'll pick it up here on Wikipedia. So, yeah, first thing pops up is Wikipedia. So, yeah, I'm not going to move the phone because, like I said, I got a mess on the desk. But anyway, Saboteur, have you read Big Bet's book? I've got the copy because they had it's the little pamphlet one, right? Got a copy at Fort Laramie. I made copies of it, but I screwed up in my copies when I was doing it, and I got like all out of sequence, so I'm gonna do it again. But yes, I have read it. And I need to go back and read it all the way through. I got like halfway through it before I found out I'd screwed up when I was copying it. But anyway, yeah. So when you pop it up like this page, and Wikipedia has gotten a lot better here in recent years. In fact, I had my history professor in college, and this was in like 2014 or 2015, told me that Wikipedia was great. If we wanted to source it, we could, but he would prefer that we'd source the sources that were sourced on Wikipedia. Anyway, so yeah, when I open up the Colorado War, it goes into, basically the brief overview of it. And, it has links to different things and stuff, what's going on. And then it gets down to the background part. And then the thing you want to start looking for is the little numbers and brackets, because that's where information is sourced at. So anyway, going across on this one, this is actually pretty well done. Um, Actually, I'm letting her looking at this and it's like that book is almost like Wikipedia printed. Uh, Very close to Wikipedia printed. Anyway, so yeah, and of course, it ties into the Indian War of 1865. But yeah, I'm getting off topic here, so I'm starting to read it. But yeah, you go down to the bottom of the page, and it's going to have citations, and that's where you're going to start. That's where you want to look for the information. Where did they get that information from? Because that's where I'm going to go to look to find that information. I'm not going to quote Wikipedia if I write something. I'm going to quote the source that it came from. So it's like here on the first one is the first one they quoted was Donald J. Birth Birthbrong, the Southern Cheyenne Norman University of Oklahoma Press, page 199. I might have to look at that book. So I don't think I have that book. Um, and this is the other thing that ticks me off with Wikipedia is then sometimes they just don't give the whole thing. I've got Hoig 1980, page 61. Okay, what Hoig book? And I'm going to guess, because it's on the Colorado War, that it's this book right here. Let's see if this one was published in 1980. No, 1961, so it's a different Hoig book. But anyway, yeah, it'll go through. It'll give you a list of books, papers, and such. And that's a great place to find it. In fact, there's quite a bit here on this one for the Colorado War that I'm going to have to look at some point. But yeah, so it's like I'm looking here and I'm seeing a lot of names that pop up that I'm familiar with. Green, Jerome Green. If you're not familiar, Jerome Green is one of the greater authors out there. Him and Paul Hedren are probably two of the best. But yeah, Jerome Green's great. Paul Hedren's great. So yeah, I see Green. I see Hoig. I see Hyde. Hyde's another one that he has some good stuff on. George Byrne Grinnell. And if you don't know who Grinnell is, George Byrne Grinnell was an Indian fighter, and then he kind of started becoming a naturalist and decided to try to. He had played a role in saving the buffalo, and he played a very major role in leaving written accounts back of the Cheyenne culture and society and stuff. In fact, he published 2 volumes, a 2 volume encyclopedia on the Cheyennes. As he went down and interviewed them and took notes and such. He also wrote the book The Fighting Cheyenne. So Grinnell has a lot of good information. And a lot of his stuff comes directly from Cheyenne sources. And apologize for that. My belt's biting into my belly right now. Let's see, McDermott. The Circle of Fire, which that book, I highly recommend it. And when I get up north, we're going to talk about that one. But anyway, yeah, there's lots of good names that pop up here. Then also it has down here at the bottom references. So you've got your citations and then you got your references. And a thing I found is that the references don't always go into a lot of depth on stuff. So like the Fighting Cheyennes, it's mentioned. Colorado History is mentioned. Atlas of Colorado, Life of George Bent, which Life of George Bent is a great book, but it is hard to read. It is really hard to read. So anyway. Yeah, Laundry yeah, that was the good old school days. Let's see. Sabater says, "What do you think of Finn Burnett?" I need to look more into it. um, let's see here. Yeah, I think I got everybody there. Because yeah, think I've got his book. Uh, no, I don't have his book. That's right. Yeah, he was up in that area. Um, yeah, I haven't read much up onto him, Sabater, to be honest. Actually, while I'm thinking of it, I'm gonna throw that book on my list. And so yeah, and so like when I go on Amazon too, when I'm looking at books, the things I'm gonna look for is the first thing is the publisher, and this one's Stackpole Books, so that's a fairly famous publisher. And it was written in it was first published in 2003. Then I go down to the bottom. Uh, let's see. Yep. And it's all got really good reviews. Oh, this is a reprint of the 1937. Excuse me. Yeah, that's the other thing you got to watch out for on Amazon too. Sometimes it has the published date when it's actually a reprint. Um, why in the heck haven't I read up on him? He was up there at Phil Kearney and C.F. Smith and all of them. Huh. Thanks for bringing that one up, Sabater, because I know the name, but I haven't read up on him. It's like, holy crap. The thing of it is, it's like I've got so many books to go through. It's like, holy crap. But anyway. Hardy says, so when you're doing living history, do you find yourself having to stop and break things down when talking to the general public? When you know a lot, it can be easy just to nerd out on something. Um, Sometimes, yeah. Um, sometimes we try to, let's see, how do I want to put this? As a park guide, a tour guide, I basically try to give the general overview of things. And that's going to be the basis of my talk because, the way we do things where I work at is we've got talks. Sometimes we have regular tours. I'm not so good with the regular tours up there. But on the tops on certain subjects, we'll have a subject that's specific, but I've got a broad overview of that specific topic. So we'll say, like when I'm talking about the canon, I give basically a brief history of the canon in the United States service. I go over it for about 30 minutes, talk about the canon, when it was adopted, why it was adopted, where it was used, how it was used, talk about the ammunition was used. So I go over that in about 30 minutes and then we shoot the thing. After that, if there's anybody that wants to know more, then we start getting more in depth as to, types of powder, this, that, and the other. And then like on the small arms demonstration, that one I need to work on getting it down. That one winds up usually me going for about 45 minutes because I cover everything from the flintlock Charleville to the trapdoor Springfield and try to capture that inside of 30 minutes. Yeah, like I said, usually turns into 45. Then we got the shooting demonstration to go with that. So, yeah, sometimes, you start getting into it. And then other times, you got people that just don't care. So that's why when I'm doing a presentation or something, I just give the brief overview. And if people want the nitty gritty, they're going to stay afterwards. They'll stick around. They'll have questions. And I tell people that. It's like, yeah, I'm going to give you a brief overview for 20 minutes. I said, don't feel that that's your limit. If you got questions, you want to know more on the subject, I got all day over here or wherever I'm at to talk about it or for however long. Usually, it's like when I got talking to the post trader, I'm in the post trader from 1 o'clock to whenever it is I go home. And so, darn tootin', I'll sit there and talk with you on it. So yeah, it's a kind of a mix. Let's see. I know when I was doing Civil War reenactments, I could talk to a spectator and their eyes just glaze over, and I talk to them like they were 5 years old. Yeah, and sometimes you get that, Hardy. And I've noticed with them, if they glaze over, they're not that interested, so I just give them the basics. And it comes down to judging the audience. You really got to learn to judge the audience. And like I said, being a tour guide, I got 2014 was when I started, so I've got almost 10. So this will be my ninth year. 9 years. I've got 9 years of experience doing it. So it's like, and that's all I do every day is that every day for 6 months straight. So I got 4.5 years. Anyway, yeah, you just you learn to judge the audience, and I can pretty well. And this ain't 100% of the time, but I can pretty well judge when somebody walks in the door just how interested they are. Yeah, Hardy, you've got a point there too. Oh, hey Todd. So usually when somebody walks in the door, if they've got their phone in front of them, sideways, they're just there to take pictures. They got their phone in front of them like this. They're there because they're with somebody else that's touring around and they're just killing time. If they walk in to the room I've got with 3 kids, they're probably not going to want to stick around and listen to very much. Now, the exception to that is if they walk into the room and they've got 3 kids that have Junior Ranger books, they're probably there to learn a little bit. But you get somebody that walks in there and I kind of give them the basic information and they start asking me more and more and more questions, or they start looking at things. Usually those are the ones that you're going to have a long conversation with. And also, with that too, sometimes when they're looking at things, they don't want to be bothered. They're wanting to take in. So it's really hard to learn to judge people. And one of the things that I've noticed with the Park Service is that everybody wants to engage, chat with everybody that comes in. It's like, not everybody that comes in wants to be engaged. So that's why, I try to just do a quick brief when they walk in. It's like, hey, welcome to the Post Trader. This is the Walmart of the Prairies. Folks that come through here for, on their way to Oregon, California, or Utah, and stop and get supplies. Also serve the soldiers as well as Native Americans for a time as their store. And if you got any questions, feel free to holler. And hey, William Schlosser, how's it going? So I give them all that, and then I kind of sit back and watch. And usually they'll, okay, thanks, yeah, and out the door, or they won't respond. Some of them just won't respond. Sometimes, being that in Europe there is a big fascination with American history, you'll get some folks that come in, you'll give that spiel, and they'll just look at you like they got 2 heads, and then they'll start saying something in another language that I don't understand. It's like, oh, excuse me. So yeah, you got to learn to read the audience, and really, it's one of those things that you learn it by being thrown into it. But yeah, it's one of those things you got to learn by being thrown in. All right. Let's see. Saber says he mentions fight between the Arapaho and second counter volunteers and the hanging of the 3 chiefs. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Because he's mentioned, I think, in Circle of Fire. But yeah, I got that book added, so I'll have to get that one. I got so many books on my wish list. Ooh. See, Todd B says you could start your own Indian Wars tour guide company. Many of my friends work for Civil War tour companies based in Virginia. I know a guy that does do that, and he makes 1 round a year, but that's not something I'm going to get into anytime soon. That might be something to do in retirement. But John Langelier does that. He takes a tour bus around, and usually, I think it's been the last 2 years. Yeah, the 2 years I've worked at Fort Laramie, I've given introductions for both of his groups, and John is a great guy. Always have fun with his groups when they come up. But yeah, I've thought about that, but that, like I said, that's going to be a retirement thing. Todd, why were many Civil War battles fought on national park? Oh boy, as a living historian, it's like, yeah, that one hits home. My favorite one. My favorite one. I was sitting down there at Bent's Fort, and this lady walks up, and at the time we had 3 oxen, 2 horses, and I think we had 2 donkeys. But anyway, the oxen were out in front of the fort. The one horse, she just pushed him around all the time. She worked in a feedlot, and she learned a feedlot real well. She didn't learn how to be rode very well, but she learned how to move cattle very well. So she had them poor oxen. She pushed them up in front of the fort where the grass was green. So I'll give her credit. She knew where the grass was green. They're sitting there eating away, and this woman walks up to me and she says, "Is that a real oxen?" And about that time, he lifted up his tail and took a big, loose, juicy dump. I said, "Yeah," and I said, "He just took a real dump too." Oh, that one was great. And then, yeah, as always, is that a real fire? One time I was boiling a buffalo tongue out in the plaza. Is that a real tongue? Yeah, that's real buffalo tongue. Are you going to eat that? Yes, I am. They didn't believe me until I cut the tip of that tongue off and started chewing on it, and I thought the little girl with that group was going to lose her cookies. But yeah, well, there's always those fun ones. Or the other fun one is, aren't you hot, Matt? And it's like, yeah, I'm miserable. Uh, let's see here. Zauber says you need to learn some Lakota to get that impression down. You know, I've thought I need to do that, and I wanted to learn some Cheyenne too. And unfortunately, I can't find anything online that's easy to learn. It's like I went to what was it? Duolingo. I got Duolingo because I've been learning Russian and German. But they've got Navajo on Duolingo. It's like, why don't you have Lakota and Cheyenne on Duolingo? Come on. But yeah, either one of those. Yeah, I should learn the Lakota Bings. That's more what's going on up there at Fort Laramie. Well, there's Northern Cheyenne up there. So yeah, either one of them. I need to learn both. But I do know the sign language fairly well. I just need to practice on it a lot more. But yeah, maybe I can, if I get permanent, I can talk the park into paying for me going up to OLC and doing a Lakota course up there. Hey, Doug Dukes is in. Hey, Doug. The question I had on your holster, I already kind of took care of it. It was on there. There's the 3 lines that was on there. I couldn't figure out how they was put in, so I went and took my beater blade and I cut them, but I kind of got a little screwed up. I'll have to send you a picture. I screwed up towards the bottom. It's like I made the first cut with a beater blade, and then I went back over to try to round the edges so it didn't have real sharp corners. And I didn't follow the track perfect, so it's got a double cut in there. So I'll have to send you a picture, and if you're not happy with it, I've got enough leather I can cut it again. Let's see. Hardy says, no, I've had the thrown into it moment. I got shoved into doing a presentation on the jail at a reenactment. No prep, no script. Only heard the other guy's speech once. That was, yeah. Okay, so Bent's Fort, my first year there. Came close to quitting. Came real close to quitting. For a multitude of reasons. And if you're wondering, my eye is just itching and bothering the heck out of me. And it's probably because of all the dust in there, because the wind's going 70 miles an hour. We had a big haboob, or a habib, or whatever they call them, south of town. But anyway, got thrown in down there, so I did 2 weeks of training. And this isn't history training. This is what to do in the Park Service, what to do as a seasonal, what you can say, what you can't say, hatchack stuff. Kind of the history of the area. We spent 2 days traveling to sites in the area. We spent a couple days talking about how to do research. And then we got 1 day to do research.
one day. And, oh yeah, we got to go on a couple tours, 2 or 3 tours. And one day to do research, a couple days tours. On the first Monday, my the second pay period, so my third week, starting the third week there, they said, you've got a tour at 9 o'clock. And it's supposed to run for an hour and a half. I ran it for 15 minutes. And I was like, I ain't ready. So I started going on everybody's tours over and over and over again. And from that, I pieced together enough to give a tour that would last about 45 minutes by about my third or fourth tour in. By the time I'd been there for about 3 summers, I was finally getting to where I was confident to start. I'd done enough research to start doing my own tour. And, by the time I'd been there for 5 years, I was pretty well adept. And then, I went up to Fort Laramie, and I got up there, and it's like up there they do things totally different. It's like you start up there, they didn't have the newbies doing presentations for a month and a half. I think it was. They all started about the 1st of May and middle of May, and then they didn't start doing presentations until middle of June, July. Me, I had enough experience that they threw me in pretty quick, and I was doing it on topics I already knew, which was fur trading. That was the big one. It was like fur trade and post trader. That was my 2 talks that I did, and by the end of the summer, I could do the Life of the Soldier. Okay, my Scout program, I was doing perfect. So yeah, and then last year I expanded that out, and I started doing the Cannon. I did the small arms, post trader, fur trade, scouts, Reynolds fight. This year, I think I'm going to try to start a program on the Rosebud. And then I've been wanting to do some on Red Cloud's War and such, which I usually fit Red Cloud's War into the small arms program. But anyway. Okay. Justin asking on the Walker. For me, the Walker, it's history. It's great, but it burns a lot of powder and it gets expensive to shoot pretty quick. In fact, I think I calculated up one day. At the time I calculated it, it was cheaper to shoot 38 Special than it was and 45 ECP than it was to shoot a Walker. But that's the thing is right now powder's in shortage and powder's extremely spendy. Caps are hard to find, so Walker's nice. Great gun if it's your first black powder gun. I wouldn't recommend it. But yeah, I don't know. That 1917, that would be kind of tempting. It depends. If you're just shooting it and having it for fun, I'd go with one that's a little bit easier to find ammunition for at this point. But I got 2 Walkers. I thought about buying more just for giggles and grins, and I realized I can only handle 2 at a time. So I'm going to stick with the 2 I got. I've got 3 Dragoons, and really there's one of those I would like to part with. Really like to part with. But as it is, I'm going to hang on to it. Yeah. And Walker's not a bad choice. Todd B did the soldiers a little bit. It's and the thing of it is that there's somebody that's asked that question. Gina Woods, I'm waiting for 2 more shirts, but haven't really. Yeah, I was gonna film them yesterday, and I just didn't feel up to it. And then the day before that, Dad and I went fishing. I was gonna go home and film them, and I was feeling pretty cruddy then, so thought about filming them tonight. But I don't feel quite because I really can't get the Billy Yank with my freaking sinuses plugged. It's not working out. So as soon as I get kind of squared away here, we'll do that. Sorry, I keep moving the tripod here, but I'm going to have to move my belt buckle because it's really biting into my gut. And ignore the writing on the back there. That's from like 2017, 2018. maybe even 2019. That might be 20. No, that's 2018. Because some of those have already been filmed, but I left it on there and it won't erase off, and that board's all shot anyway. Let's see here. Already says, aren't you hot in that? Well, I got kind of ice down my pants, keep me cool. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, William. Pedestrian parks too. Yep. People want to know why, Doug Dukes, people want to know why we don't move the deer crossing so they don't get hit as much. Yeah. Saboteur says Dull Knife College is good for Cheyenne. Lakota seems to be more spoken since it's easier. Maybe it's easier for me since I heard it since I was little. Yeah, if you grow up with it, it definitely is easy. But for me, because I spent some time up on Cheyenne, the Cheyenne River Reservation, and we had a native kid working for us up there, and he tried to teach me some of the Lakota. And he said he didn't even fully understand it because he said there's the man-to-man dialect, there's the man-to-woman dialect, there's woman-to-woman dialect, and woman-to-man dialect. There's like several dialects. So what he told me is he said Dances with Wolves Lakota is not good Lakota. Yeah, and they had a OLC there in Eagle Butte, and I thought about going over there and doing it, but I just couldn't work it out. I couldn't commit. But yeah, I need to go and learn one of them. I know at Bent's Fort they were gonna force me to learn Cheyenne if I'd have stuck around there, which I had no problem with that. But I told them, I said, it's gonna be a stipulation that you all pay for it. I'm not gonna pay for it. Especially if I have to go travel and do it off site. It's like y'all are gonna do that. But that's one of the reasons why I took to learning the sign language. And it's like I've got 4 books on the sign language. I've got Tompkins, which is kind of the easiest one. That's the Boy Scout version of it. And when I say Boy Scout, it was written for the Boy Scouts. I've got Denny Leonard's book, which one of the best ones out there. I highly recommend that. It just came out not too long ago, but because if you're a member of the AMM, American Mountain Men Association, AMMA, you have to. That's one of the stipulations. You have to know the Native American Sign Language, Plains Indian Sign Language, and you have to be able to make 50 signs and read 50 signs. And then I've got Seaton, which Seaton's book is great. It's got some good descriptions. And then I've got Clark, William Philo Clark. And Clark's book doesn't have any pictorial, but it's got pretty good descriptions on how to make the signs. So that's a great source. And then I found another source where somebody was uploading a bunch of videos. There was an old general, and I can't remember his name, about the 1930s, who went around and made a bunch of videos with the native sign language. And I was able to find some signs on there that really clarified some things, and then some things that didn't clarify some things because this guy's missing a bunch of fingers and has arthritis so bad that anyway, yeah, I've done a lot of research on that, and I was sitting here the other night just piddling around, doing a talk in my head. I'm just going to try to work on or alter on my scout program. I was like, throw some sign language in there. And just to see how I did most of that thing doing the Native American Sign Language, so the hand talk. But and I need to practice on it because I've gotten really rusty. And I kind of stutter with it too because I kind of get the shorthanded version. Anyway, but yeah, Bing's Out is kind of universal through most of the tribes. That's what I usually get away with. Yeah. Hardy, ever do any first person? We have a living history park where it is all first person. They will not break character. It's be a pain when you want to actually talk to the presenter for real. Yeah, I do a lot of first person, Hardy, and when I was down at Bent's, when I was doing a tour, I'd tell people, it's like, all right, we're gonna go to this first room, and I'd start at the end. Um, Talk about the reconstruction. Why was it reconstructed? Why did it have to be reconstructed? And why was it abandoned? And then I'd start going into, well, why was it here? And I'd tell folks, I'd say, okay, once I leave this room, I said, we're going to go back to 1846, whatever year I was talking in. And I said, I'm going to be a person in that year. I said, so if you've got questions from the modern times, kind of keep them towards the end, but kind of give you a feel what it's like. And I got away with that. And I try to do first person. And I tell you what, interacting with the public in first person is difficult. Because it's one of those things you got to know your audience. And so I tried to do it up there at Fort Laramie. It's a little more difficult, mostly because everybody expects you to do it while you're in the uniform, the Civil War or the soldier uniform. It's like the soldier history. I don't care about. I'm there for the civilian scouts are my big thing, and the commerce side of things, the post trader store, the fur trading store, and the only time that I care about playing a soldier is when I get to be an officer, because then I can just stand around and act like a butthole and and it's pretty historically accurate. It's like, I don't have to answer your question, civilian. Go talk to my sergeant. No, I don't do that when I'm playing an officer. But I do make everybody else salute me. Yeah, William. Yeah, no kidding. Yesterday I think we hit 60 some odd miles an hour. But right now I notice it's starting to kind of go down. But it's like, yeah, next 3 more days, 5 days of this crap. I was hoping to get another fishing day in next week, but I don't think it's going to work because when the wind quits, it gets cold again. Hey, Chris, no worries. This was kind of an impromptu one. Gotcha, Sabater. I got you on that one, yeah. And Snapper's in. Okay, Doug, if you're happy with it, I'm happy with it. But I got pretty close. I wish I had it here to show you, but I got pretty close as I could get, because I was looking at that and I couldn't tell if it was cut or if it was gouged, and I didn't want to try to fiddle with my stitch groover because I can screw up pretty fast, but I can run beater blade real good, and when I fold it around and stitch it, those will open up and they'll look closer to that. But yeah, it all looks good except for that right down there at the bottom. And it's like I tried to go around and follow it in so I could round those edges off. Not that tight of a curve. All right. Todd says, when is my next visit to 11 Bang Bang? Well, I was hoping to get over there before I headed north. That ain't going to happen at this point. Because I think I'm going to be heading up to Wyoming here a little sooner than what I anticipated. Actually, my original plan was going to be heading to Wyoming this weekend. Like tomorrow. Or actually, no, 2 days ago. I was originally planning to leave 2 days ago. And then I had all these holsters, and I'm like, I'm not going to get them done. It's like, I'm going to push it back to the 15th. Big reason I wanted to get back to Wyoming is, my best friend is moving. She's took a job somewhere else, and so I was wanting to get up there to spend some time with her before she takes off. And, I kept putting it off because, she didn't have a start date, and we figured, she probably wouldn't be starting until June. It's like, then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, crap, she's going to be leaving a lot sooner than what I thought. So I may leave after the next Tales of the Trails. I might wind up leaving and heading up there that week after that. I'm going to try to get all these holsters done. I should be over there working on them now, but I'm not. I'm on here. But I'll make sure I work on them tomorrow. And my shoulder, too, it's been giving me fits, so that's why I hadn't been. But going to get all those done so I can have money to go up there on. And then, once I get up there, do some things with her and help her get packed and on her way, and get my stuff that's at her place, and get settled in, get ready to start work, because I start work the 23rd of April. So, yeah, I was going to go up there on the 15th because I thought, I'll get a week, get to spend a week with her before I start work. But now it's get up there and try to spend as much time as I can. So, because I may not get to do any turkey hunting. Reminds me, I need to call my buddy and see if he'll let us hunt turkeys this year, if she even wants to try. But anyway. Yeah, Hardy, I know you're feeling on that one. I really do. And this friend of mine, though, and I'm going to go up see, her and I, for my birthday weekend last year, we went over to, goddamn, Fort Robinson over by Crawford, Nebraska. We went over to Fort Robinson. And figured while we was there, we'd do the tour. And she wanted to go through the little museum there. And so we went over and paid for the wagon tour. And I thought, oh, we're going to get to ride in the stagecoach I've seen being driven around and given rides. No. We're sitting there and I'm like, okay, it's tour time. Where's the stagecoach? And here this truck pulls up with these bumper pull wagon things. And I'm like, oh, that's our tour. And so the lady that was giving the tour got on there, and we talked to her for a little bit, and she started going around and was telling them about a few things. And it's like, with the Indian War stuff, there was some things that she had wrong, and it's just like, yeah, it's like I was in the back with my friend. I was telling her, I was like, yeah, that's not quite right, or just kind of going over it. But yeah, we went around to her, and she covered everything from when it was first established to when it closed down. Because yeah, they ran that clear up until just a few years after World War II. But anyway, after the tour was done, I was sitting there telling Caroline, I was like, yeah, I said, because a woman had said something about we at Fort Laramie had one of their cannons, and I'm like, do you know anything about that? She's like, no, we don't have one of their cannons. But afterwards, walked up to her, and I asked her a couple things, and she says, I'm not real good on that. And I gave her some credit because she was a blind woman. But I told her, I was like, yeah, I said I work over there at Fort Laramie, and then all of a sudden she was the one asking me questions. Like, oh man, like that's not the way I intended for that to go. But anyway, let's see. Yeah, don't worry about it, Louisiana. This is just kind of an oddball chat. I'll run it here for a little while. Let's see. Lone Dragoon, better late than never. Yeah, it's true. And you can always go back and watch it again. Hardy had a reenactment. I went to ask a spectator. I listened to 3 people give the speech about how a muzzleloader works before I grew a pair, and basically told the guy, let's talk details now. Yeah, no kidding. And one of the things, when you mentioned that, one of the things we got into at Bench Fort one year is we had this, it was a girl, younger girl. She came into the fort. She's Park Service. She's a historian. And she's there, to learn about the place. And she's there for all day. And at this point, it's middle of August. And when it got to the middle of August, my enthusiasm, from mid-July through early August, my enthusiasm to do a tour just wasn't there, especially in the afternoon. Now, 9:30 tour, oh yeah, I was all over that. 2:30 tour, it's like, I got better things to do in the shade. Yeah, so she comes in there, and she missed the 9:30 tour. And she's like, oh, that's all right, I'm going to stay here. So she wound up taking the 11 o'clock tour, then the 1:30 tour, and then the 2:30 tour. And, or was it the 3 o'clock? Yeah, I don't remember. Anyway, yeah, it would have been the 3:30. Anyway, she took three of them with three different people. So she had my buddy Dave, my friend John Freed, and me. I was the last one. And Dave and John had had the earlier shifts. I had a closing shift, and so they were gone by the time I got done with my tour. So I got done with the tour, and she went and walked around for a little bit. And she was carrying a notebook, taking notes the whole time there. And she come back up to me, and I was up there watching the gate because the other guy, or the other one I was closing with, I think I was closing with, who was I closing with? It must have been one of the girls that was working that summer. I don't remember now, but anyway, was closing. She was in doing the money, so I was watching the front because the maintenance had been there and they took care of the animals for us. And this girl comes up to me and she's like, "I got a few questions, just some clarifications." And from 5 o'clock to 5:45, when I basically told her I got to get out of here and go home, she was grilling me on all these things because David said something on his tour that was contradicted by John's tour that was contradicted by my tour. So it was like, okay, we all got to sit down and all get on the same page about what's going on. Yeah, fortunately that only happened once, but man alive, I give that girl credit. She got us all pretty excited. So, but yeah, it's always fun when that happens. But my favorite one is the guy came in and I was doing the talks on the muzzle loaders, and the guy came in and proceeded to tell me that there wasn't a single mountain man that came out into the mountains with a flintlock. They all came out with cap locks because cap lock had been invented in 1820 something. I'm sitting there and I'm like, you look at the number of flints traded at the rendezvous compared to the number of caps traded. And I was like, cap locks were not that common. So, anyways, well, chat's kind of slowing down here a little bit, but I'm gonna have to go find me a Coca-Cola. And I can definitely tell I'm drinking too much Coke. It's like I have gained quite a few pounds since I come home, and I'm gonna have to lose quite a few pounds because I ain't gonna fit my officer's uniform up there at Fort Laramie. I don't think I'm gonna fit in any of my uniforms. Yeah, Hardy. Yeah, that was one of those. Oh, they all had Hawken rifles. The hell they did. Then proceeded to tell me that the Remington was used more than the Colt Army was during the Civil War, and it's like, no, there was just. Actually, they were about even with quite a few more Colts, but they were pretty close. Gina said my name in capital letters, so I must have said something. Oops. I bet I said a bad word without even realizing I said it. So I'm going to take you along while I go get a Coca-Cola here. But yeah. And then that's the other thing is like everybody calls us reenactors, and it's like when we're at living history sites like this, we really don't consider ourselves reenactors. Reenactor really refers to somebody that's replaying a specific event at a specific time, or specific place, specific time. So Gettysburg is a reenactment. Vicksburg is a reenactment. Battles during the Revolution, that's reenactments. And what we do up at Fort Laramie and in the Park Service in general on a daily basis is living history. Hardy, you just opened that can of worms with me. We'll get into that here in a second. But anyway, So when I'm up at Fort Laramie, I am not per se a reenactor. I'm not really portraying specific day, specific event. What I'm doing is just portraying a regular person in a regular day to day activity. So I'm really not reenacting anything. Um, and some of my friends would call it what is the word that he used it for? Something archaeology. Uh, anyway, basically, archaeology by figuring it out on how it was done, living it. I can't even think of that word he uses now, and it's going to bother me for the rest of the night. But anyway, so yeah, we're not exactly reenactors. Now, say that I was getting ready to reenact or do something, we was all dressed up to go do this certain battle or event. Yeah, then at that point, that's a reenactment. So yeah, there's a fine line. You can really say that reenacting and living history are two divisions of the same thing. Um, God, that thing is going to bother me. Practical archaeology, I think something to that effect that he called it. But yeah, and campaigns, stuff like that. That's experimental archaeology. That's the word I'm looking for, Hardy. Thank you. Experimental archaeology. uh, yeah, that was gonna bug me all night. Um, so yeah, it's like sometimes things in history aren't quite clear, and it's like, well, how in the heck will they do? And the only way you can figure it out is to experiment with it. Um, yeah, Hardy, bless his heart. Oh, William, right now I'm in Colorado. Um, so I live down about halfway between Pueblo and La Junta, and I'm not going to mention the town's name because I don't want everybody knowing exactly. Well, if you buy a holster from me, you know where I'm at. Stamped on the dadgum holster, and it's usually written on the box. But anyway, I don't want to advertise everywhere to everybody where I'm at. If they want to know, they can pay me for a holster. So yeah, that's where I'm at down here. Because yeah, I grew up in this area and worked at Bent's Fort for 8 years, 7 years, 7 years. I did 7 years at Bent's Fort, and the powers that be down there thought I wasn't good enough anymore to work there, so I went to Fort Laramie, and Fort Laramie was like, they were stupid for getting rid of you, but we're going to take you. I've been up at Fort Laramie for 2 years, and I'm going to start my third year up there now, and finally got my promotion that I've been wanting for the last 5 years. Yeah, everything's working good. So yeah, but I did, and I haven't told a lot of people this. Well, what the hell? I did put in for a job at Sand Creek because that's not a place I would 100% like to work because it's such a sad story, but it plays into a lot of the Indian Wars, and it's such just it's an important. The history there is so important and ties into so many things. So it's like that's one place that, as much as I hate to tell the story because it is such a sad story, it's a place that I wouldn't mind having on my resume. In fact, I would love to have it on my resume. Um, just because it ties into everything. It ties to Fort Laramie in ways. It ties to Bent's Fort in ways. It ties into all the Indian Wars. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, I'll be heading back up to Wyoming here in a few weeks. But for right now, down here in windy southeastern Colorado, where we have dust storms and droughts, and then we get drenched with rain and snow, and then it goes back to drought, and starting to think this is becoming one of the more unpredictable places for weather in the country. One thing's guaranteed, though, frickin' wind down here is as bad as it is up in Wyoming. Hey, Victor Schultz. Yes. So Hardy brought up the Revenant. Now we're going to get into that. We'll just keep this chat going all night. So, yeah. When it comes to the Revenant, there were things I liked There was things that I didn't like. A lot of things I didn't like. When it comes to the rifles, pretty good representations. When it comes to the muskets, there were short carbine versions of Brown Besses, and to be honest, I don't think there were that many of them out there. But in reality, that's kind of getting pretty nitpicky. But there were Brown Bess trade guns. They were traded to the Indians, so I wouldn't be surprised if they had some. But to be honest with you, I'd been more impressed if they were Northwest trade guns. But if I remember right, I think most of them were J.J. Henrys that the Mountaineers carried. Anyway, that wasn't that bad. Where they filmed it at looks nothing like where Hugh Glass got mauled. All right. So Hugh Glass got mauled. I think it's on Standing Rock because it's up on the Grand River. Where I worked at was on a ranch that was on the not directly on, but pretty close to the Moro River, like 2, 3, 4 miles away from the Moro River. So it's like, yeah, you get the Moro River, then you got the Grand River. That's why they got Moro Grand Electric up there in that area because, they're so close. Anyway, it's Lemon, South Dakota. It's about where Hugh Glass got mauled at. There is one scene in the entire Deadgum movie that even comes close to looking like that area. And that's that scene where they're flying over that little canyon-looking thing and has pretty close to where he does the buffalo hunt thing. That was about the closest I seen in the whole Deadgum movie. There are no ferns. There's no giant freaking pine trees in South Dakota, not till you get to the Black Hills. Here comes another Deadgum train. They had a derailment down here last week, so they've been running trains like crazy here. So it's like, yeah, no. The areas they filmed it was complete crap. The fort that Hugh Glass makes it back to is not anywhere near the mountains. It's near where the town of Chamberlain, South Dakota is now. And in fact, that Fort Kiowa, is underneath the river. It's in Lake Francis Case, or the Missouri River, whatever one you want to call it. So, the story of Glass, too. He did live with the Pawnee for a time, who are related to the Arikara. He may have had a Pawnee wife. I don't know 100% sure. But I know that there's never, ever been a mention of him having a child. Much less one that was there and got killed when he got mauled by the bear. So, when it comes down to it, the only scene that has any accuracy to it is the bear mauling scene. And it's not historical accuracy. That's how bears maul people. They got that down pretty pat. At the end of it, now here's the other thing on the history, is he did not kill Jim Bridger. He forgave Jim Bridger. Because Fitzgerald and Bridger were assigned to watch him till he died. They leave him out there alive. So they leave him. He lives. He makes it back. Swears his vengeance on both of them. Well, he finally catches up with Bridger and realizes Bridger's a young boy that really doesn't know any better, and so he forgives him. Lets him go. Then he goes after Fitzgerald. And when he catches up to Fitzgerald, Fitzgerald's actually working for the army. And so if he kills him, he's going to be hung for treason. And so the commanding officer forces Fitzgerald to give Glass back his goods, and Glass goes on his way, and he doesn't get his vengeance. And then a few years later, he's going to be killed up at Fort Union by the Arikari. He had several run-ins with the Arikari. So, yeah. The whole story of the movie was kind of BS. It's like when I first started watching it, I'm like, okay, it's not bad. It's not bad. Oh, it's getting worse. It's getting worse. Oh, this is terrible. Oh, man, this is bad. Oh. The beaver bales were okay. The skinning of the beaver on 2 logs, I've never seen them done that way. I really haven't. bring them back to camp and skinning them. I've seen references to that. Packing them in bales, certainly. But yeah, the opening scene, it's like the Arikara are amongst them, and then all of a sudden Hugh Glass looks up and there's like sniper sniping guys out of the tree. And it's like, how the hell did he get up there in the middle of their camp? So yeah, there were some issues. And then there's he shoots twice with a flintlock without reloading. So you know. And one thing that one of my American Mountain Man Association friends pointed out is that the whole thing of gutting the horse crawling inside, it's been noted in history. And you know what happens is, especially on cold days, is you get inside and then that thing freezes and you don't get back out very easy. So, not to mention you're going to be covered in blood and wet and you're going to make you that much colder yourself. So, yeah. Okay, Hardy says, yeah, stuff is about Glass pretty bad, but if you don't watch it as this is about Hugh Glass and look at it as general look at the fur trade, it gets really, it's just, I think if you look at it as a Hollywood action movie, it's not bad, but as a general fur trade, I mean, it's not. What little bit of fur trade is portrayed is okay. Like I said, the beaver bales, those are fairly accurate. I agree with that. You know, abandoning the boat. I don't think they abandoned the boat. I don't remember. I need to go back and read on that. But yeah, as I recall, they continued on. They don't talk about Jedediah Smith because Jed Smith was there that day. Yeah. Yeah, the bear deserved an Oscar. I think that's bear with CGI. Saboteur is like in Dance with Wolves where the Lakota are in fear of the Pawnee. You know, I've noticed that in a lot of westerns, the Pawnee get made out to be real bad guys and the Crow get made out to be real bad guys, but really, everybody was fighting everybody. It's like, come on. It wasn't really good or bad. There was just intertribal conflicts between everybody. But yeah, Dance of the Wolf, that's another one that they screw up. It's like, for crying out loud, it's like, they make it seem like that particular band of Lakotas had no interaction with the white men. And this is probably 1864, 1865. And it's like, yeah, they would have had quite a bit of interaction with white men at that point. The big herd knocked out, taking the hides and stuff, it's a little early for that. I mean, not completely out of the ballpark, but it's a little early for that. But they would have taken the tongues, they would have taken the hump meat. They'd taken the choice cuts of meat. But yeah, that whole movie was kind of screwy. Now, if they had made that out to where he was a dragoon that had come out with Harney's March, it's like that would have been a little bit more believable, but not 100%. It just was not a good movie. It just was not a good movie. The one thing that was good about the movie is that the dressage and stuff, that was all pretty spot on. Other than I think there's one scene where Costner has a brass frame revolver, but give him credit for that. The rest of it was okay, for equipments. Hardy. But I was watching. What was I watching the other day? I was watching that one on the Wheeler family. It was a TV series on the Wheelers. Help me out, guys. Into the West? Yeah, Into the West. I was watching that. Boy, they really made the Crow look like real bad guys in that movie. And it's like, no, everybody's fighting everybody. Uh, but Into the West, that one was still kind of. There was a lot of issues I had with that one too. Mountain Men were kind of fancied up pretty bad in that one, and well, some of them. And I don't consider myself to be a stitch counter. I'm kind of a mediocre stitch counter. So if we're talking on for like historical acts or clothing, one being um, Levi's and 10 being, so close you couldn't tell the difference between it and an original, I'm about a 7. So I'm okay with most machine stitching. And buttonholes I don't get too worried about. Just because it's like people want to get into this. It's like it is expensive to get into that. Uh, when you get to that old stuff. However, there are sources out there for for like civilian clothing. South Union Mills has some great stuff that's affordable. Anyway, so yeah, I'm a 7. I'm not 100% stitch counter, but when I'm watching a movie and I'm sitting there watching them walk around in buckskins, and I'm like, that is bright gold chrome tan deerskin. That's not right. Um, yeah, or excessive fringe. So during the Mountain Man era, yeah, they did have fringe. Pants, you're gonna see fringe down the leg. Shirts, you'll see it down the seam, around the seam here, and that's about it. Um, Shirts, yeah, you'll see them down the seam and maybe some on the shoulder, but um, other than that, fringe, you don't see it a lot. Now, by the time you start getting into the 1860s and stuff, then you start seeing all this sewn on extra fringe. That starts to become a real thing. But Mountain Man era, it's like, no, you got a lot of fringe. You're not quite right. And excessive beadwork. And especially in colors that aren't right. It's like there was a guy that was going to come volunteer up there at Fort Laramie, and he sent us some pictures of his Mountain Man outfit, and they was having me help review because we was going to let him volunteer and come out and volunteer, um, and they asked me to help kind of go over the stuff because like he had his Civil War uniform stuff and he had his Mountain Man stuff, and I looked at the Civil War uniform stuff, and they deemed that to be what it was, which was not great. Um, and then they had me look at the Mountain Man stuff, and I'm like, okay, for one, the badger skin shooting bag, no, no, it's got shooting bags were leather, brain tan deer skin, and like I said, I don't knock people for using chrome tan as long as they don't use bright yellow. And there is a smoke color out there. I've used it. I've got a pair of pants that are made out of it. That's fine, but not the bright chrome yellow. That's just nasty. But anyway, and then he had another bag there that was heavily beaded. It was kind of a lime green, not like a neon lime, but it was a light green beads and white, light green and white. And I'm like, there is nothing that I have seen ever with those two colors. The most common colors you see on the trade records are blue and white, light blue and white. The black are the next, and then like red, green, and all those other colors. They didn't sell a whole lot of those. And they really didn't start coming in and being popular until quite a bit later, 1860s and 70s. So it's like, in Mountain Man era, really, quill work would still be pretty prominent too. But for instance, like for years I've wanted a beaded knife sheath, and I hadn't done it for the simple fact of I hadn't found anything that historically that I really liked that was from that time period. But I finally come across one, and I've shown this one before. I finally come across one that was a Southern Cheyenne pattern. That was a copy. The one I seen was a copy of one that had been collected in the 1830s through 40s, somewhere in the 1830s and 40s, and it was this one here. Now I got a little bit lighter shade of blue than what the original had. The original, you can't find the blue hardly anymore that the original had. just because they don't hardly make them. But anyway, yeah, that's a copy of a Cheyenne sheath. And one of the things that I noticed on everything that's mentioned to be a Cheyenne sheath is that they have this pattern, not specifically these colors, but this style of pattern along the edges, where you have the two triangles coming together. So, in fact, I don't think, if I remember right, the original that I copied was not black and white. It was yellow and white. And I didn't have any yellow beads. So I went with the black and white. But you see this pattern pop up quite a bit on a lot of the Cheyenne beadwork that I've seen pictures of. And then, of course, this pattern is pretty common. So it's like somebody told me that geometric patterns didn't come in until the later, like, reservation era period, and you needed to do floral. And when you look at quill work is geometric. When you look at painted parfleche, it's painted geometric. And everything I found on beadwork that's dated pre-1860, well, even through pre-1870, so 1870s and back, it's geometric. I don't start seeing a lot of floral stuff until the reservation period, especially the detailed floral. Now, that granted, I have seen some less detailed floral in the 1860s. There's a picture of Nicholas Janice. And I don't know if it's the father Nicholas or if it's the son Nicholas or nephew Nicholas, one of the Janices. He's wearing a jacket and a vest, and both of them have floral beading along the jacket, but it's not intricate beading, it's outlines. You know, you got a stem, got an outline of a flower, an outline of a stem. You know, it's pretty simple on that geometric. But yeah, it's like when you're doing that stuff, you got to do your research on it. Just don't buckskin it up, as some would say. Y'all tell I'm hyped up on caffeine and cold medication. I'm rambling and going off on tangents. Yeah, Hardy, I did a wheeler on a whoop at once. Oh. Yeah, Sadler. Now, I will give Hollywood credit. A lot of the more recent movies, they have done an excellent job, and I will give them credit on The Revenant, on getting the languages right. In Comanche Moon, that the last installment for the Lonesome Dove saga that they did for the TV, they had him speaking Comanche. Revenant, they had Rickera speaking Rickera. You know, and the Into the West, they were, you know, using proper Lakota. And that's one thing Hollywood has done right. They've got the languages down. So I got to give them short applause for that. It's not like 1960s John Wayne movie style Indian languages where it's just kind of a mix of whatever they throw together. It's like in The Searchers. The Comanche greet by saying Yaptahe. Well, that's not Comanche, that's Navajo. And yeah, and like Geronimo, I think they had those. They were speaking actual Apache in that one. Oh, Louisiana Great! Don't get me started. The only cartridge weapons I want to see in Civil War is a Spencer and a Henry. And it's like I used to not be real up to snuff either on my military uniforms. I've gotten more such since I went up to Fort Laramie, but like I said, military things just aren't. They're not quite my forte. Like I said, I like playing an officer when I'm up there. It just kind of comes natural to me. But oh, Sabater. You know, I got to think about it. It's like I should have tried to talk you out of that 66, but no, I like my Henry now. And I hope that Sharps treats you very well. But you got to get a buffalo with it. It's got to kill a buffalo. Yeah, Hardy. No kidding. And, when we get on the Hollywood kick, um, excuse me. With the Hollywood kick there, one of my favorite movies from my childhood is now one of the ones that drives me nuts when I watch it, and that's the Comancheros. And so, when I was growing up as a kid, my dad had grown up watching Gunsmoke and all the John Wayne movies and such. So it's like when I started growing up as a kid, that's what we watched. So I think that's why I kind of associate with the older generations rather than the newer generations around today. It's kind of like, I grew up with the same stuff they grew up with because, my dad, that's what we watched. And we had the Comancheros. And I absolutely loved, as a kid, those intro songs to those movies. And in fact, when I got older and found them online, on Amazon store, I started buying the intro songs to those, like Sons of Katie Elder. As soon as that comes on TV, I know exactly what movie it is. Same with the the Comancheros. It was like, yeah, I just absolutely love that one. And that one, when I was a kid, that one was one of my favorites. And then I got older and started doing research and realized that, hey, they didn't have 73 single action armies and 92 lever action Winchesters in 1848. And on top of that, 1848, I think it's 48. I don't remember. I gotta go back and watch the movie now. But anyway, yeah, 1840. Yeah, it's not. No. Although they did open up with proper dueling pistols, I'll give them credit for that. Let's see. Yeah, Hardy, yeah. Or, and the searchers and stuff, they're all wearing Levi blue jeans. My favorite one from Gunsmoke is when they're all sitting there wearing these big, heavy winter coats, because I think it's from the first season that was televised. It's supposed to be set in January, and this old buffalo hunter got so cold that he froze his feet off, and they're all standing around these big, heavy winter jackets, and you look over, and there's this tree that's just completely covered in green leaves, and it's like, oh crap. And then there's another scene where you see this great big power pole with all the power lines, and it's like, but yeah, you gotta cut them some credit. I will give them credit. Some of those older movies that are set in the Civil War, they tried to make the revolvers look like Remingtons, because if you look, there's a lot of. It's either they took a Colt single action army and they welded a web underneath it and then put a block in there for like the handles on the base pin, or they took 1875 Remington and then just welded the two little tabs on the side so it looked right. But either way, I will give them credit. They tried to make the Remingtons look like Civil War Remingtons, and for the most part, unless you're really paying attention, you can't tell the difference. And with the Springfield rifles, unless you're looking real close, you're not going to see the trapdoor from a distance, so they can get away with it there. But and then there's some Western movies that, they do get the. I was watching Winchester 73 the other night with Jimmy Stewart, and I'd be surprised. I saw more 73 Winchesters in that Western than you ever see in any Western from the same time period. So yeah, because Jimmy Stewart. That's funny, as they're carrying 73 Winchesters and calling them Henrys and saying, oh, they don't have the power of this 73 Winchester. Like, you're shooting a 73 Winchester. What are you talking about? But at least, they weren't 92s. Whew. Yeah, Hardy. Yeah, that's the other thing. Monument Valley in Kansas is like, Kansas is pretty darn. Well, there's parts of Kansas that's flat. Now, southern Kansas, where I went down to visit 11 Bang Bang, that's a pretty nice area. Yeah, Hardy, and there are westerns that they did try that in. They did try. So you got to give them some credit. But yeah, probably one of the better westerns. Yeah, Saboteur. Um. Oh God, yeah, Undefeated. Yeah, that one isn't that great. Well, I mean it's a good movie, but um, I think if I remember right in Bonanza in some of the earlier seasons, they had Cap and Ball. Because I know that I've seen Little Joe. I know I've seen one episode where Little Joe had an 1860 army. And William, you was right. I remember Haas having a Remington. And I think Adam had a. Oh, I know he had a Colt. I can't remember which one it was. And that was pretty early on. And then as you get later on, they all go to 73 single action armies. But yeah, some of those early ones weren't terrible. But yeah, maybe it was. Let's see who's had that. Yeah, Hardy. Maybe it was 51 Navy that Little Joe had. But um, Louisiana Gray says Adam didn't have the 72. Well, I thought he had an open top Colt, but maybe I was wrong on that one. But I know it was some of the early ones. Um, oh, in fact, I want to say it was in the first season. But yeah, once in a while you'll see them pop up in there. There's an episode of Gunsmoke where a guy has a Patterson, and I think that episode is titled "The Patterson." Um, yeah, it's a gunfighter that shoots with a Patterson. Yep, Hardy. Yep, I remember that. Hey, Jersey Red. William saw you down when it was so much time. Yeah, no kidding. You can have all your dirt back, that's for sure. Yeah, it's funny. As I was sitting over at my dad's, and all of a sudden my mom and dad's phone just went wild, and said there was a dust storm coming in, and to not be outside because air quality is going to be bad. So I went out and got my dogs, and came back in. And I looked it up, and it was actually the dust storm was about 5 miles south of us. It started south of us out here on this plains that have been overgrazed, and well, it doesn't matter. It's been so dry the last few years. There ain't been any grass to grow, but I guess from here to Lahana, and then from Lahana down to Two Buttes, which is down by Springfield, Colorado, it was bad. It was a bad one. Visibility like 50 feet. In fact, they closed the road from Lamar to Springfield, and I think they wound up closing the highway from Lahana to Kim. But yeah, that's bad country out there. Yeah, Hardy, I don't know what gunfighter choose, but that one gunfighter had one. Todd B. Jaron, rifleman. Nah, my dad, because they run it on TV ever so often. So my family watches it, but I wasn't big on the rifleman. Um, I've watched a few episodes of the Virginian. That one's been playing. Cheyenne, I got into a few episodes of that, but Laramie was one I liked. I liked Laramie. Gunsmoke, of course, is my favorite one. Trying to remember what heck other Western series that they play that comes on. Wanted Dead or Alive with Steve McQueen. I wasn't real big on that one. But yeah, some of those, I mean, they're so corny that I just didn't like watching them. Might have enjoyed them as a kid, but as an adult, there's some I couldn't get into. Bat Masterson was one that I couldn't really get into, but oh, and then Shotgun Slade with the over-under shotguns. Like, yeah, that one was kind of screwy. Yeah, Todd, that is true. I just remember when I watched The Rifleman, I got so intrigued. I had a Henry 22 rifle, and so I said, I'm going to be the rifleman. I'm going to shoot real fast. I was like, well, I can't put a bar on my rifle because my dad would have shot me. So it's like, I'll just use my finger. Just leave it there on that lever and just come back and hit it. And I did that, and I came back, and I pinched my little finger in between there. Actually, that trigger went under my skin and wrapped in. Oh, that was the last time I ever pulled that stunt. That was funny as my best friend up in Wyoming. She loves the Wild Wild West. I've watched a few episodes, and it's, yeah, I mean, it's uh, not the worst, but I mean, it's not. It's I'll say the TV series was better than the movie. Because yeah, the movie was, it was fun as a kid, but as watching as an adult, it's like, why did I find this entertaining? Anyways, well, I'm thinking about shutting this thing down here. Yeah, we'll run for another 10 minutes. We'll run for a full 2 hours here, and then I'm gonna have to go and start doing some stuff. All right. Yeah, Saboteur. Yeah. The thing of it is as I get older, it's like trying to shut my brain off. I had to force myself to shut my brain off for Hell on Wheels, and I enjoyed that. But a friend of mine that does living history, he just couldn't get into it, and he pointed out some of the things that was wrong with it. I'm like, he's got a valid point. Yeah, Comanche. Yeah, no kidding. Um, yeah, and then the movie Hostiles. Um, I watched the movie when the Hostiles come out. I kind of got excited for that, and I watched it, and it's like, okay, why are these guys got Mills 4570 belts on, but they're carrying Spencers in the 1890s? By that point, nobody was carrying. Well, I should say, no soldier had carried a Spencer for probably 20 some years. Um, and also, the Comanches wouldn't have been out running around like that because they wound up on the reservation a few years before the Cheyennes and the Lakotas, the Northern Cheyennes and the Lakotas were. So it's like that thing was. It was set in the wrong time period. If they'd have set that in the early 1870s and more into it. Oop, looks like we jumped here on the connection. Yeah, Hostiles I could have used. No kidding. Uh, and then the other thing that ticks me off is when they do a movie like that and they use a historical name, but they have they use it way out of context. Like in Hostiles, they mentioned Billy Dixon and make a mention like he got killed by Yellowhawk. And it's like Billy Dixon was not a soldier. Billy Dixon was a scout. Um, yeah, he got the Medal of Honor, but he was not a soldier. He was a scout for the U.S. Army, and he was a buffalo hunter. Yeah, the Searchers. I mean, that's another one of those. They got the wrong guns, the wrong time period. But the Searchers wasn't bad, um, except for that part of Texas does not look like Monument Valley. Um, but yeah, probably I'm trying to think what would be the absolute worst Western, and I'll limit it to the more popular Westerns. I can't really pick one out as the absolute worst. Um, but I can tell you what, I've seen a lot of modern B-roll westerns that are worse than some of the 1950s ones. When you've got a modern Henry rifle, just don't. Cowboys wasn't bad. Cowboys was a pretty decent movie. Um, Outlaw Josie Wales was pretty good for historical accuracy on guns. There's a few more brass rings than what should have been there, but not bad. Not bad. Uh, Hardy 2009 version of Alamo. That one's not bad either. That one actually, I was a little bit more impressed. Um, I was more impressed with that one, to be honest. The guns were all pretty good. You know, the clothing was good. Um, it was pretty decent. It was honestly very decent. Uh, Better than the John Wayne version of that. When I watched that the other day, I was like, holy crap, that's corny. That one is really corny. It's like, wow. Let's see here. Early 2000s Texas Rangers movie was eh. You know, I've watched that one and I enjoyed it as a kid, but as an adult, it's like that one was corny too. Wasn't bad, but it was corny. I'm trying to think. The Texas Rising, I got excited for that one, and I watched the first episode, and it's like, bull crap. No, just no. Oh yeah, Gene, I forgot Sackets. Yeah, the Sackets is good. The Shadow Riders is good. Um, yeah, the Shadow Riders is actually really good. So I watched that one, and then I didn't watch the Sackets until it finally came out on DVD. And then, yeah, my folks got me into Centennial. And Centennial, I like it, but that one is definitely it's a historical fiction, very both based very closely on what was going on. But yeah, it's not terrible. Oh, I'm about to sneeze here. Oh shoot. Yeah, we'll run here a few more minutes, and then I gotta go and do some other things. Ooh, excuse me. Jersey Red, did you see the new Ozempic commercial with Will Rogers? No, I have not. Oh, Will Roberts. Excuse me, Will Roberts. I have not seen that one. All right. All right. Jersey Red said Guinness Book of World Records for different cowboy tricks. Okay. Uh, and I can tell my Dayquil's starting to wear off. My starting to clog up here. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to run. Oh, let's see here. All right, yeah, we're gonna shut her down here pretty quick. And speaking of 11 Bang Bang boys, I haven't seen them on the chat here. Their mom's here, but they ain't. Alrighty, yeah. So we're gonna get down here to the last minute. So, anyways, yeah, I want to thank you all here for joining on tonight. This is very impromptu, just kind of didn't really have a point. And yeah, turned into a pretty good chat. Anyway, I want to remind you all that 11 Bang Bang Boys are having their chat tomorrow night with, I think, British Muzzleloaders. So check that out. I'll be back with Garrett next week, week from tomorrow, for Tales of the Trails. We're going to be talking about the Scouts. Just kind of a general overview. That'll probably might be a little bit shorter chat. And then after that, that'll be the last episode of that for probably a little while. And then I think, some folks who asked me to get into Tom Tobin and them, So we might get more into Tom Tobin in one of those, but we'll see how it plays out. I might start getting back into the things I'm getting back in Fort Laramie. We might start focusing once again up on the Northern Plains Indian Wars. But there's a lot we can cover on Tales of the Trails, and I'm not going to rush into them all. We got plenty of time to do them. Just there may be an extended break in there. So anyway, thank you all for joining on. Stay safe out there. Like I said, check out 11 Bang Bang tomorrow night on the 11 Bang Bang Reload Show. And stay tuned. Keep your powder dry. Y'all stay safe. Have a good one.